You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and Michael. All right, everybody, we are back. I'm Dave.
I'm Michael.
And today we have a lot on the plate for you. Before we started, Mike and I were talking about gigs.
Yeah. I had read on Facebook, at least local where I'm at, there's a musicians group for this area. And somebody threw a question up there. Hey, I was just contacted by a bar owner. The state of Ohio is kind of loosening up on, this social, what do they call that thing now? Social distancing.
Yeah.
And the bars and restaurants, at least in Ohio, are going to open up first. They're going to open up at the end of this week. This week being like Friday is May 1st. And the bar owner says, hey, we're going to be open, but we're not allowed to reach our capacity as far as people in the bar. It's going to be greatly reduced. With that being said, would you play, and would you play for less money? So I thought that was real interesting. And I have to admit, you're the first person I thought of, or one of the first people I thought of, Dave, because I know that you gig a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this has happened to you yet, or if it will happen to you. But either way, posing that question to you, how would you respond to that?
Well, I would basically say no. If you can't afford my full band, no. But I will come and do a duo for wherever there was a full band gig. And if you want to pay less, we'll take less as a duo. But we'll get paid what our duo gets paid. But no, if we're doing the same job, I'd be like, that would be like saying to people, hey, we're going to charge less for our plates. Our food's going to cost less.
Yeah, good point. I mean, they're going to have less people there, so they're going to make less money. But at the same time, you're right. Yeah, they're not going to charge less for the drinks.
Right.
They're not going to charge less for whatever bar food they serve, burgers,
Right.
fries, whatever. So, or they're not going to pay their employees less, right?
Right.
So why would you being a self-contracted employee of the bar for any given night you're playing there, why would you play for less?
Yeah, I think it's I wouldn't.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's like in your area, but here, I played years ago in bands, and then I moved out of the area and really did not play in bands for a long time. I was just too busy working. Moved back to this area, started to play in bands again, and it's like decades later, and like the pay is still the same. It never moved.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It really is.
And then the insult to injury, now they're saying, oh, could you come in for less?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's nuts.
Yeah.
My response would be, don't bring in full bands if you can't afford to pay full bands. Pay what you can afford. In other words, if you were running a steakhouse and a steak costs $25, you're gonna knock your price down for the customers coming in because they haven't been working. No, you're gonna charge $25 for a steak. Pay the band whatever, and if you can't afford a $500 band, pay a duo $300.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, is that what? Because I know that you play. You play in a variety of different projects.
Okay. 5, yeah.
Okay, 5.
Actually, once this thing gets going, once bands start kicking in, there's 2 other projects that I got hired for that are just a couple of one-off gigs. So that's like 7 different things I got to have songs and set lists for.
Oh, wow. Is there, hopefully there's crossover, you know what I mean? Like you're playing some of the same material in all of the bands?
Yeah, yes and no, not really, but yeah.
Because that's a lot to juggle material-wise.
It sucks.
With that being said, the duos that you do, I'm not sure how many of them that duos that you play in. Is that the going rate for a duo? $300?
Um, no, it's what I charge people if it's really close.
Uh huh.
If I have to travel, it's 400.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I have to travel even further, it can be 5. Depends on how far. If I have to drive an hour, it's usually like 500 for the duo. If it's close, if it's a half hour to 40 minutes away, maybe less. I mean, it just depends. But yeah, there are some people that pay us 5, some that pay us 4, and
Nice.
that pay 3. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it like who the hell wants to play in a full band when they're only going to pay $100 a guy, and then the band's making 500. It's like, this sucks.
And 100, at least in this area where I live, $100 a guy. That's what it was 20 years ago.
That's what it was in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is now. It hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks.
No, I take that back. With exception, if you're doing a tribute band,
Yes.
You can get more money as a full band.
Right.
Yeah, but then typically at that point, the venue's a little bit different. You know, it may be an outdoor event or a special event or something along those lines. It seems like tribute bands are looked at differently than other bands. They're looked at like a notch up, that much closer to an actual band that records, a recording artist. I mean, do you feel that way?
I think tribute bands, so they draw people. Mm-hmm. And that has a value to it, and they draw a lot of people. Some people love that experience. I mean, years ago, I don't know when you were in LA or in that area, when the Atomic Punks used to play.
Atomic Punk.
Now, the Atomic Punks was Ralphie, the guy that plays in, he sings in whatever that band's called now. They used to be Metal Shop. What are they called now? Steel Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steel Panther.
Yeah.
So Ralphie, the singer, was the singer for this band, Atomic Punks.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my bass player of the Big Angry at that time, we went out to see the Atomic Punks at the Whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And the two of us were laughing because this band was phenomenal. I mean, they were great. And we were like, this is what it must have been like for people in 1977 over at the Starwood or the Whiskey or Gazzari's, who was seeing Van Halen for the first time. It must have been like, you could imagine, because you were there in that historic Whiskey, mm-hmm. watching these guys who did a great job. And Ralphie's David Lee Roth is phenomenal. And in fact, when I saw them, the guitar player at the time was this guy, Brian. And Brian got hired to do the David Lee Roth tour right after that, when the Dave and Sam tour mm-hmm. went on.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it was just great. And that was a great tribute act to go see, because you can never see that again. Now, the same thing would happen if you wanted to go see, there's a Journey band around here that does Journey. And you're not going to see, in fact, you're not going to see that lineup anymore. But bands can go give people that experience. And for some reason, bands like Journey are out there trying to do either newer stuff or whatever they're trying to do. It's like nobody cares. We want to see Escape and Frontiers, and that's really like why it becomes such a viable thing. And a lot of people enjoy going to see that.
Yeah, they do, and I can see value in it on many different levels, and one of them would be, number one, it would be more convenient to go see a tribute band, because more than likely they're more accessible, and number two, it's got to be more cost effective to go see them than to see the actual band. I mean, because bands. Ticket prices are a lot more than they used to be.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's a whole thing, because the record company really stopped paying. People stopped buying albums.
Oh yeah.
Companies aren't making money. The record companies aren't paying. It used to be that you would go on tour and you would basically lose money to break even on tour unless you were Led Zeppelin. But you were basically out there breaking even just so you could sell more records and merch.
Right.
Today, you aren't selling records. So you put out a record, you try to get on the road and get people to come see you live because you're going to take all the money from the live show. It's basically become the Las Vegas mentality. You know, years ago in Vegas, if you were a gambler and you gambled whether a little or a lot, they wanted you're going to play craps all night. Here's 2 tickets for a show. Have dinner on us. No, now it's that restaurant has a bottom line. It's separate. The casino that's making millions and millions of dollars is not going to float the other aspects of the casino. And that's a shame because that's a part of Vegas that I think they should bring back, because I think they're missing out when they make Vegas too corporate. I'll tell you right now, Vegas was a better town when it was run by the mob than when it's run by corporations, because the mob knew how to make money and how to get people in there by Rolls-Roycing them, giving them the free meal, giving them this, because you're making so much money.
Yeah, I mean, I think how I'm going to interpret what you're saying, and you'll see this happen to a lot of different businesses, is that the bean counters get involved, and someone's looking at a spreadsheet going, "Hey, wait a minute, why are we giving away all these steak dinners? You know, that's money that we could have. You know, we could add to the bottom line." And so that's
right, because the bean counters are now answering to a group, and that group, whether it be a quorum or a board of directors or whatever it is saying you need to make and it's wrong. It's a poor model, and it's not working well for the music industry. It's and also the other thing with the music industry is just the hipster doofuses took over the business, and they know what everybody should want. Whereas back in the 60s and 70s, people were signing artists. They were like, we'll give them a shot. See, what the hell do we know?
Yeah.
And the what the hell do we know attitude in the music business is a far more successful attitude than I know.
Yeah, that coupled with at least what I'm led to believe is you go back 70s, whatever, an artist did not have to, hit big on the first album. They expected it was going to take 2 or 3 albums for them to hit their stride and kind of, align with the public, wants or demands or whatever you want to call it. And they had a little while to develop. Now,
yes.
Not now, but you go back 5-10 years ago, whatever, they didn't hit immediately. That was it. Boom.
It was actually started in the mid 90s, but they used to have what's called development deals.
Yeah.
And you had a band like Journey that put out 3 albums, and after 3 albums, they have what's called a Come to Jesus talk with the band, and they're like, "You guys need to find a singer. There's something not happening here in this band."
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's what they did. The management, talked to the label, and the management's like, "We got to find a singer," and they settled on Steve Perry. So going back to the tribute bands thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about the tribute bands is that you're going to hear a lot of different things from musicians, and unfortunately for musicians, their opinions don't matter. And what I mean by that is when I play in my band FM station, we have a set list. Every guitar solo I do is exactly what's on the record. I'm trying to give people that experience. Some people will say, well, when I play in a band, we like to do, what we want. And, we kind of play with the solo, and we don't do it exact. And we don't feel like you have to. No, you don't. But you know who does? The audience, because they don't really know that I'm playing things. I mean, some people will say, oh, yeah, I noticed that was note for note. But they just know it sounds good. And so we get a crowd coming to bands. The lazy bands who are like, oh, that's not, we don't really like that. You don't like it, or you don't want to put the time in. But the audience isn't with the band on that one. The audience is like, we just want it to sound good, and they want it to sound like the record. That's what they go to see. And they'll be like, oh, I go to see a live band, and I want to hear some. They'll defend whatever they want to defend. But the tribute bands are the ones, where you're out there making $500 for your band. The tribute band's getting paid $5,000, and they're playing everything note for note, and that's what people want to fucking hear. And, that's just the bottom line.
I do agree with you. And my expansion of that is, a lot of the music that we're talking about has been around for decades now at this point. Okay. So they've listened to whatever the song is, insert song title here, for decades. So almost every part of that song is recognizable to them. It's like ingrained in their minds, in their heads. And so when they hear it done differently, it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's not the way that it was. Now,
I agree.
So with that being said, I actually kind of compare it to classical music now. It's like classic rock has become like classical music, where you'd have an orchestra perform a piece as written with no improvisation, and that's what we're talking about here. It's like,
right. I mean, if somebody wants to go see a tribute band of the Grateful Dead, then you can go play whatever the fuck you want. You want to step on a cat's tail? That's what it sounds like to me. Not a fan. But, now, again, when we do the duo, we get the gist of the song, because obviously we're now doing an acoustic interpretation of a song. And so we give the gist of all the parts, and we try to make it sound as good as we can. And on the channel here, I do like a lot of lessons showing people how I play certain songs, so you can get the gist across, because people want to hear those points. But an acoustic version, if you're doing like a storyteller, say, kind of version of a song, you have a certain amount of liberty. But you don't have that kind of liberty to be like, here, I'm going to play my own solo because I just don't respect the song or the audience that much.
Now there are, at least for me, there's two categories. There's like, what we're talking about here is playing it exact. And whether it be in a tribute band or maybe not even a tribute band, you're just in a band that's playing clubs, and you just choose to try to play it as close as you can to the actual recording. And or then there's the take the liberties, whether it be a duo or maybe even a full band, where it's just kind of, here's our take on this. And I like both, if they're done well.
Correct. Now, let me just make this caveat before people start going nuts. If you're in a band and you do whipping post, you do not need to play the exact solo to whipping post, because there's the live version. There's so many live versions that people like of whipping post that you could basically, and Dwayne never played it the same way twice, and Dickie didn't. So you can do whatever you want to do there, and people will enjoy it, because technically, even though the Allman Brothers are a Southern rock band, they're a Southern rock jam band. And that's kind of what's expected. But if you're playing AC/DC's You Shook Me All Night Long, learn the fucking solo. That's all I'm saying. You wouldn't sit there and do your own solo to You Shook Me All Night Long, because people want to hear that. Wow, wow, no, 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 no. You know what I mean? They know what to expect. In whipping post, do whatever the hell you want to do, as long as it's, as long as it sounds good and you're playing it, and that, you're fine.
Yeah. No arguments there.
Yeah.
So out of you said 5 projects with 2 new projects that are maybe not necessarily ongoing. They're going to be more.
Right.
Okay. Would any of them qualify for a tribute band? I mean, are you in a tribute band?
No. These are like FM Station, my rock band, we play the songs like the way you would hear them on the radio. That's why we're called FM station. And we do like a lot of one hit wonders.
No,
And
nice.
yeah, and it's a fun band to play in. And you know what's funny about this band is like certain times I'll play something and people will be like, "Oh my God, that sounds exactly like so and so's." And I said, "You know what? I don't like that person's tone." So I changed it, but because I play it exactly the way the record goes, you
Sure.
hear it as that.
Yeah.
Which then brings up the whole thing about liking someone's guitar playing, even if you don't like their tone.
Yeah, the question is, do you have to like someone's tone to like them, or do you have to someone that you like? Do you have to like their tone? Kind of back and forth either way. And I can think of a lot of artists or bands that I like the music, but maybe not necessarily the tone. And I'll give you an example, and I'm probably going to
Okay.
get skewered on this one, but uh, Eric Johnson, amazing player. I'm not that crazy about his tone. Not really, It's not like it's horrible or anything like that. It's just not what I would do. But amazing player, compositionally, everything. He sings well too. I mean, he's kind of an all around guy. And
It's funny because I do like his tone. I don't love it, but I mean, when I hear his tone, I'm like, I dig it.
yeah, okay.
I don't not dig it, but there are other players where I'm like, oh God.
Well, yeah,
But
I think I don't. So it's interesting. Like you and I are, I guess, on left and right on this one, and another artist that I think you and I are left and right on would be Brian May.
yes,
Yeah, because I like Brian May's tone and also like the band. So that's one of the ones where I like both, as opposed to just one or the other. And I'm assuming you like the band, but not necessarily Brian's tone.
Queen.
Yeah,
I love Queen.
yeah.
I love the band. In fact, it's like, and you know what's funny for me? I think I like his tone in the '80s, and I hate those albums.
You
And
like
I
his
hate
tone
his
in the
tone in the
'80s?
'70s.
Huh.
I like his tone on Hammer to Fall.
Yeah,
I like his tone on I Want It All.
yeah.
I don't like his tone on stuff like Tie Your Mother Down or We Will Rock You. But I
Um,
love those records.
you know what? I go way back with Queen. I I became aware of Queen when they had two albums out.
Queen
Okay.
2 is one of my all time favorites.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's my favorite Queen album. Okay, is Queen Two, and from Ogre Battle to White
Much of
Queen.
the. Oh, right.
Yeah, um, I mean just well,
Harry
matter of fact,
Telemaster Strokes, great.
yeah. And matter of fact, isn't there? I think they did a version of Seven Seas of Rye in that album, and there's also Seven Seas of Rye in the first album. I think it's on both.
On Queen,
Queen 2 and Queen 1, I think they both have a
one's
song
an
called.
instrumental. The instrumental's on the first album. Queen 2 has the one with the lyrics.
Okay. Now, I do want to add this about Queen. Queen was my first concert as a young lad. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and it was the Night at the Opera tour. So that was my first concert. And I still have the program. They used to sell like programs. It was like a big, kind of an album-sized, almost like a magazine. Had big, really nice color photos and all kinds of crap in it. And it was merch, from the concert. But I still have it. I found it when I was moving a few years back. I was surprised I still had it.
All right, here's a great question for you.
Okay.
I want your top 3 guitar tones in songs, and I want your bottom 3 guitar tones in songs.
Oh, that's
Like,
tough.
oh, of course it's tough.
I mean, because you'd have to put some thought into that
No,
one.
you could pretty much think about stuff off the top. Okay, so first of all, the top 3 guitar tones, um, for me, I'm going to say Romeo Delight by Van Halen.
Interesting. Huh. Well, it's funny. See, it's easier for me to answer your question in this way. I would probably name players, as opposed to
No, but if you can name the player, then just name what song, if you were to tell somebody, this is the epitome of what I love about their guitar tone, how tough would that be?
It's tough because, most of the players I'm thinking of have a wealth of material. And okay, as an example, I think we talked about this the last time, is I'm a big Michael Schenker fan,
Sure.
especially UFO Michael Schenker. And especially, I thought the peak of their career was the Strangers in the Night album, the live album from 1979, I think. And his tone on that album was to die for, in my opinion. And you could pick anything in that album, and his tone is just like killer. So
you pick
that album, Michael Schenker, done deal.
But you pick. You're the one who has to impress somebody. Like, so people are out there watching.
Mm-hmm.
What song on Strangers of the Night? They want to hear what. Because for you to say, Lights Out, maybe?
I don't know about Lights Out. I'm almost thinking of maybe These Kids or Mother Mary or something.
All right,
like
there you go.
Maybe one of those two. Or actually, yeah. Now, Van Halen would be a tough one because his tone over the years changed. It's not the same.
It's different on all 6 of the first albums. It's different on every one of those.
Yes, and
my favorite is Women and Children First, because he sounds like that amp. It sounds loud. It sounds like they captured. That amp just sounds like it's Eddie in an amp. And there's a few songs on that album that exemplify, and Romeo Delight is one of them. Fools is another one. It sounds like the amp's going to explode. And so I would suggest to somebody, Romeo Delight, there's my Van Halen tone. Huh. Now, just real quickly, another person's tone who I cannot stand, but I love him, is Randy Rhoads.
Yeah, you know what?
I hate his tone.
The recorded Randy Rhoads tone, I'm not a big fan of. Now, with that being said, on YouTube, I tripped over some live sound check videos, from him, and his tone sounded amazing. It sounded great. It was so much better than that recorded stuff from Diary of a Madman and whatever.
Well, I think Diary, the tone is way better on Diary than Blizzard. Blizzard is what I'm referring to. So for one of my all-time bottom sounding tones,
mm-hmm.
would be like the tone on No Bone Movies.
Okay.
Which to me sounds like he stepped on a wah pedal and then lifted it up.
Yeah.
And I just do not. I love the song. Don't get me wrong. I love his playing. I just hate the sound of that guitar. I hate the mid-rangey guitar. Another one that I do not like. Which one would I throw in by Brian May? I hate the guitar tone on Misfire. It's on Sheer Heart Attack, the third album. Don't you misfire, feel me. It's like the tone knob is rolled all the way off, and it's a beautiful song. I love, and that's my favorite album. But God, that guitar tone on Misfire, I do not like.
Sheer Heart Attack's your favorite album?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Because a lot of good songs. I mean, Killer Queen,
Flick of the Wrist.
Flick of the Wrist, I really like. That was the B-side to Killer Queen, and that's a really cool tune.
Fantastic song.
And then, of course, you've got Stone Cold Crazy. That's a killer tune. Brighton Rock, and Now I'm Here, and else
In the Lap of the Gods.
Yeah, that's a good album.
Bring Back That Old Leroy Brown.
Yeah.
Misfire.
That's
She Makes Me. I know she makes me
That's a killer album.
Oh yeah, and what is Dear Friend on? Is Dear Friend so dear friend, your love is gone. Yeah, that's on Sheer Heart Attack. I was confusing it for a second with the song on Queen 2. Is it called Nevermore? Nevermore.
Mhm.
That's a
Now,
great song too.
now with Queen, favorite album for me is Queen 2.
Yeah, it's
More than
fantastic.
more than likely followed by News of the World at that point.
Really? Okay. Well, one of
Yeah,
my favorite Queen song is probably on News of the World. It's late.
It's Late's a very cool tune. And talk about, I just,
And I like his guitar tone on that song.
oh, it's really cool. And
Yeah.
he was doing, on the solo on that, wait a minute, It's Late,
Yeah.
wasn't it the solo where he does a lot of where he's just tapping. He's not like trilling and tapping, but he's tapping to make it sound like it's a bend, but it's kind of almost out of tune, kind of a bend. And he's like,
I can't remember. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing on that solo, and he does it a lot.
It's late. I love that. You say you love me, and I hardly know your name.
Yep.
Say I love you, and the candlelight.
That song. I think that song and the one I'm going to name now. I think they were both they both are on the second side of the album. That song and Spread Your Wings.
I think Spread Your Wings is the end of side 1.
Okay.
Sammy was low.
Yeah.
You went to the show, right? Because wasn't side 2 open with Get Down, Make Love? Boo-doo-boo-doo.
I think you're right. I think
Get Down, Make Love.
But what both of those songs were really not singles, not big hits, but really strong, good tunes.
Oh, great. That album's great. I think the album before it's better, but I'll let you have you. I like Day at the Races.
You know what? Day at the Races for me was a disappointment, because, after Night at the Opera, I was really, jonesing for the next album. Day at the Races comes out, and at least for me, it was disappointing. It just, you had Tie Your Mother Down, you had Someone to Love or Somebody to Love, and
Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy.
Yeah, I could.
Ooh, here we go again. Just You and I love. I love the Millionaire Waltz. You Take My Breath Away, and Teo Toriat.
And what was that song?
We will cling together as the years go by.
What was the name of the song? The one that it was about. I think it was about Native American Indians. What was the name of that song? People of the
White Man.
Was that what it's called?
White man. Yeah,
that was a pretty cool tune. But speaking of like, okay, here's something. You want to talk about like tone? Like Brian, I like Brian May's tone. You don't, but a Brian May tone song that I could recommend, Death on Two Legs. Opening track
yeah.
on Night at the Opera. Man, the tone is...
You suck my blood like a leech. You break the law and you preach. You
screw my brain till it hurts. You take all my money.
All my money and you want more. Great song.
Now, for what it's worth, I found out, I was reading something, over the last few years that was Freddie Mercury. That song was about
the management.
Yeah. They were getting screwed, I guess.
Yeah.
They were like making no money.
Yeah.
Literally, even at that point in their career, they were just getting hosed big time. And he obviously really disliked that guy, and I don't blame him. But man, what a killer song! The rhythm parts, the tone, and the solo, typical Brian May with that real piercing. When he bites down on that coin he uses, whatever, for a pick. And listen to, I think it's that song. That album came out in '74, I think. I think
Which
74.
one? Death on Two Legs?
Yeah,
75.
75. Okay, and listen to what he's doing with the whammy bar on, especially on that song. This is like pre Van Halen,
Yeah.
and the amount of gain that he has and what he's doing with the bar. You'd think, it's Eddie before Eddie, long and short of it. So definitely a precursor to that. I mean, so it was happening in there first, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, Brian May was doing that kind of stuff first, or at least that kind of stuff. He wasn't doing the tapping, but
Another tone I love, Bridge of Sighs. Bridge of Sighs, Robin Trower.
Very cool. Now, here's something where I like the tone, but I'm not a big Trower fan, but I like the tone.
I like that album a lot.
Uh-huh.
A lot. I think
I
did a review of his
there?
album, and people got all mad and butthurt because I said it was his only good album. They're like, you don't know anything. All right, I don't know anything. Hold on.
Well, you know what? It's your opinion. You're entitled to it. I'm not a Trower fan, because to me, it's, kind of, you got a guy basically doing Hendrix, in my opinion. And I like Jimmy better, Trower.
And I agree with that assessment. I like him less. I'm not a Hendrix fan. Okay. I do like, what I feel like is that Trower listened to Band of Gypsies. He liked that sound, and he was like, imagine if this was with good songs and a good singer. And then he got James Dewar, and they worked it out, and finally he hit gold with Bridges.
Okay.
That's how it works for me. Some people get all butthurt about it, like, you don't like what I like. Who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, that's why there's horse racing. If we all like the same horse, there'd be no odds, there'd be no race.
Yep. And I always say pizza toppings, ice cream flavors.
Yeah.
There's no wrong or right in what a person likes. They like what they like. That's it. But I know we talked about Hendrix a little bit last time or the time before that or something like that, and whether someone would have done something similar or different if he wouldn't have been there. With that being said, I do think there obviously, in my opinion, there was some magic there with Jimmy. The guy was a badass. I saw some live footage of him. I think he was doing some kind of a concert in Florida. It was an outdoor thing. And I never saw someone do something like this before. And he just did it naturally. I don't even think he even really thought about it. But he was playing, and it was in between, a phrase. And, like someone might do like a slide down on the strings with their hands.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't use his hand. He took the elbow from his picking arm and went down with his elbow. And I'm just like, what a badass. I mean, who would even think about, spur of the moment? I'm just going to do it like this. And he just does it. And I'm just like, holy shit. And I know it's a small thing. But it's just one of those things where I'm just like, that guy definitely was thinking outside of the box, maybe before there was even a box at that point,
Yeah, I just don't know that he did. I mean, let's put it this way. I definitely like him more than, say, the Eric Clapton of Cream days, although I do like some of those Cream songs. And I think that bothers me about Cream is how much Eric Clapton gets the accolades. And I really think a lot of what I like about Cream was Jack Bruce. Mm-hmm. The voice and the songs. But I got a funny thing for you. So a friend of mine yesterday messaged me, and he played me, he sent me an email, and it had 4 blank spaces with a recording. And he said, here's amp 1, amp 2, amp 3, amp 4. Listen to these and tell me what amp you think they are. And he listed the amps of what they were. I don't want to say what they are, but he listed what they were and had me put them in order. And I got 2 of them. I got 3 and 4 wrong. I got 1 and 2 right. But the idea of the conversation was one of the amps cost him very little. and one of the amps was super expensive. And the best sounding of the bunch was the one that cost him very little. And it's just one of these things where people say, you know, there's a lot of boutique stuff out there, but there's a lot of good gear that you can find anywhere, you know. And when it comes to high gain amps, I've always said, I think when you start putting them next to each other and you start tweaking them to sound like you want to sound, and then you have to EQ them, because a lot of people don't realize shit about when they, you know, especially guitar players who haven't done a lot of recording, but you have to EQ shit afterwards and put it in its place. And when you do, and you stop putting these things in its place, you're EQing out certain frequencies that you may like about your amp. And all the amps in the end of the day end up sounding the same.
Because they have to fit in that box of, you know, where it needs to be in the mix. Yeah.
And what I mean is, if someone came in, if you were to go record and you were to go in with a 5150, whether it be a version 1, version 2, or even the new EVH 5153, and you've got a Friedman, and you got a dual rectifier, and you've got what are those, a Hughes and Kettner, and some other high gain amp, say my Crank here.
Okay.
You can make them all sound the damn same. And they're all going to sound relatively the same when you go to record them. It's all going to sound relatively, if there's a certain gain stage that they can reach, which if they're high gain amps, they're all relatively going to come out sounding the same. And then you can kind of EQ the tone you want, how you like it. But people don't realize, you know, if you sit there and you play a dual rectifier and you like the sound of the dual rectifier, go on YouTube and watch people do dual rectifier versus 5150 or dual rectifier versus another amp, and turn around when they stop playing the amps, you're going to be like, I can't tell the difference.
Mm.
Or you'd be surprised. You might be like, oh, I think that one's the rectifier. But it's you can make them all sound the same, basically. And that's my opinion.
I agree, and to complicate things, maybe once you throw modelers into the mix, you know, whether it be a Fractal or a Helix or, you know, a Kemper. Well, Kemper's really not a modeler, but once you start to throw these more tech type pieces of gear into the mix, you know, they sound like them too. I mean, you talk about like a blindfolded test.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to tell, you know, what the amp is, whether it be a real amp, is it something that may have tubes in it, or something that is a recreation of those or replicating of those. At the end of the day, well, guys, and then even price points, you know, because I think you like to play through you do a lot of stuff, and even some of your online stuff, with a fairly inexpensive Fender modeling kind of an amp, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and I've watched your videos, which they're good videos. Your tone sounds fine, sounds good, sounds great. You know,
you would never know. And the funny thing is, so when Line 6, there's a lot of people that are big fans of Strymon pedals, right?
Yeah.
Now, Strymon pedals is made by a company which is Strymon, but they're also Damage Control. They started as Damage Control, actually, because they started making drive pedals first and then switched to the Strymon line. Before that, they were the Line 6 guys. They all worked over at Line 6. And when they were there at Line 6 in Agora Hills, I went up there and did the whole tour, the whole situation. Mm-hmm. And the guy sits me down in a chair, and I'm sitting there with a Les Paul in my hand, and about 15 feet across me in the room is 2 curtains in front of amplifiers, and I have an AB switch in front of me. And he says, behind one of those curtains is an AC 30, and behind the other one is a Flextone 3, Line 6. You're going to tell me which one's which. And I said, easily. I started playing the first one, and I'm like, sagging like a tube, sounds like an AC30. Click on the switch. The fucking tone is the exact same. The sag is the same. I couldn't tell the difference. It's behind a curtain. I couldn't tell. And I'm like, and I said to him right then, there's no way I would even bet $1. It would just be guessing. I'm being honest. I would just be guessing. And I played it for I was playing 20 minutes. He was like, no, you play and you'll figure it out. And he knew I wouldn't because you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, and I love when people are like, like no matter what it is, when I sit there and talk about Tonewood or I talk about, they're like, I have better ears or you don't have good ears. I'm like, yeah, you must have the best ears. Show me the way. It's like, please, it is what it is. There's no magic thing.
Well, you know what? It's a tool. Well, there's a couple things I want to say, and I'll say this first because I don't want to forget it, and then I'll go right back to this. We were talking about Jimi Hendrix. The Stratocaster guitar Strat actually might not be around if it wasn't for him. Fender was going to pull it from the line, and the only thing that saved it was there was this young African-American artist that all of a sudden started to take off, and he was playing the Strat because at that point it was going to go away, and I know that because I used to work at Fender, and I heard a lot of stories about things that happened out, throughout the years, and they were ready to pull it because it wasn't happening,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that in regards to amps, whether they be a non-modeling amp, like an actual amp, a tube amp, what have you, or a modeling device of some type. At the end of the day, what does the person want? And what I mean by that is, do they want an amp or do they want tone or sound? Okay, and what I mean by that, to use an analogy example, is like someone goes in to buy a drill at a hardware store, okay? They don't want a drill, they want a hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They want to take that drill home and they want to drill holes because they're building something or whatever it is. So they want holes. They don't really want a drill, but they need the drill to get the holes.
Right.
So it's the same thing with an amp. I mean, you want the sound, you want the tone, whether it be to record at home or to play on live or do both or whatever it is. So it's a tool to get you there. Now, with that being said, there is some bonding with something or some lusting, desire, bragging rights, anyone I know that, I used to ride motorcycles, and, if you owned a Harley, you never said you had a motorcycle. You always said, oh, I got a Harley.
Right.
And if someone owns a Porsche or a Lamborghini or whatever, I guarantee you they're not going to say I've got a car.
Right.
So I get it. If someone has a boutique amp or a vintage amp or this, that, or whatever, there's bragging rights. There's a lot of things that go along with it. But at the end of the day, whether it's a modeling device or it's a cheap amp, we're talking about that amp shootout thing that you did recently, or an expensive amp, all that really matters is what it does, what it gives you, because that's all you really want. You want to be able to play those songs.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these big amps here, these heads and cabinets, that's great for pushing air. There's a certain sound you get from pushing air. And if anybody knows anything about pushing air, it's a guy who's into Marshalls like yourself.
I was just going to say, I really identify with that term pushing air because I love to push air.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand that. It's like if somebody says to me, hey, this is the gig and ba, 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 and this is the kind of music. And I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like it's an all-purpose type of gig. I'll bring out my Hot Rod Deluxe and my pedals. But if somebody were to say, listen, it's a gig, we're doing, these songs from the 70s, and it's all these hard rock, what I call cock rock songs.
Oh yeah.
you gotta push air at that gig.
Oh yeah.
Because there's something special about pushing air. In fact, out of my combos, this pushes air. This single rectifier. It's a 50 watt. When you play that, in fact, one time we did a gig and I took it out to this gig and we were doing, I forget the song we were doing, and the guy who plays keyboards and guitar looks over me and goes, "It's nice to hear you push air." And I was like, "You get it." He goes, "Oh, it's fucking great."
Yeah.
Because there's that sound, and there's something to it. Now, it's a different animal to play, and you have to learn to control the beast. I call it when you're playing anything like either a half stack or a full stack. You have to learn to control the beast because that amp wants to get away from you, and you got to control it and keep it quiet. But there's something nice about pushing air. But there's also something where you need a smaller amp to do much more of what I would call a working man's gig.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to bring the tool belt and the toolbox and be like, all right, we got to do some work here. We got to play a solo to a Jackson Browne song. We got to play a David Gilmour solo. You got to do some stuff that not necessarily need to push air. But if you're playing in a band and you're doing Romeo Delight with a band, you got to push air to do Romeo Delight. It's just,
oh yeah.
you don't have to, but it's nice.
I tell you what, it's a whole, well, sonically, because of physics, you're pushing air. You've got those speakers, and once they start to actually move the air, and they're in their sweet spot, so to speak. I mean, they're performing, they're doing what they should be doing at a level that, how I want to say they should be doing it at. It's a hard thing to beat. It does become addictive, but it definitely, right place, right time. I mean, there's times where you're going to want that kind of gig, or I should say rig, and there's times where you're going to want the Hot Rod Deluxe. Or whatever it is. It's hard to make the Hot Rod, an amp like a Hot Rod, mimic that. I mean, you can.
It won't.
You can.
Yeah, you can, but you have to. It's
not the same.
No.
Yeah.
Even though it's 40 watts and 40 watts will push, it's not that. It's not the beast.
It doesn't feel solid to me.
To me, it's not about being solid. It's like the breakup isn't the same, and therefore you're not getting. It's like, what it's like doing. It's like, those garden hose things when you squeeze them and it sprays out like a.
Like
it makes it right where you can go mist, where you can spray hard stream.
Yeah.
The Hot Rod Deluxe, even though it's putting out 40 watts, it never gets to that tight stream.
Yeah.
That compression and that gain. And not to say that's a bad thing. It's just a different thing. And the Hot Rod can be used for other things. I think for the money, the Hot Rod's one of the best amps on the market,
actually,
especially on the used market.
The Hot Rod series, Fender's made amp since the 50s, and the best of all time, the best-selling Fender amp or amp line of all time is the Hot Rod series. Go figure. Yeah. I mean, they've been making them a long time now, and
I thought the Hot Rod was introduced in the 90s.
I think you're right. Like I said, they've been making them a long time now, and I would have thought it would have been something else. I mean, because at one point in time, the Princeton Chorus was the best-selling Fender amp. Go figure.
But the Princeton Chorus is a solid state, isn't it?
Yeah. But they moved so many of those because they sounded, for what they did, they sounded good for what they did, for what they were intended to do. And, they were priced right.
Well, the original Hot Rod Deluxe, they got people onto them originally because they were all made in USA.
Yes, they were affordable and made in the USA.
Right, and they didn't roll them into Mexico till like early 2000s.
That sounds about right, because at that point, I would have been working at Fender at that point, and I think that they were already doing the amps in Mexico at that point.
Yeah, it was either 2000 or 2001. It's definitely one of those two that they did. All right, just because we're going to have to wrap this up soon, I just wanted to say Romeo Delight for my all-time favorite guitar's tone.
Mm-hmm.
Robin Trower's Bridge of Sighs tone. and it could almost be anything off that album. "Foolin' Me" is one of my all-time favorite guitar tones, or "Two Rolling Stone" I loved. And then I would have to say Jimmy Page, 10 Years Gone.
That's a good. It's fun. It's funny you say that because when we were talking earlier about the, do you have to like the tone to like the artist or the band or the songs, or do you have to like the artist to like the tone? Either way, I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan since I was a kid. I know a lot of their music. Learned it even though I didn't play in a band because I'm such a big fan of the band. With that being said, Jimmy's not on my list of good tone guys because his tone's kind of his tone. With that being said, 10 Years Gone is hard to beat. Or actually a lot of songs on Physical Graffiti. That song's on Physical Graffiti.
Yeah.
That double album was kind of like a high point for me with Zeppelin. There's a lot
absolutely, it's the best album.
There's a lot of good songs in the album. Some of the tones are really cool, and that is a product of probably my favorite. Maybe not my favorite. It's hard to tell. 60s or 70s, as far as decades go, for me, are my favorite decades for music. What I really like about the 70s, and I know I'm deviating a little bit here, is I think the 70s really is when they perfected the what I'll call fade out solo. So you had the song, you had your verse, chorus, solo, there's a bridge in there somewhere, whatever, and then you come back, at the end of the song, whether it was fading out in a chorus or maybe the song changed a little bit, famous fade out solo, Rosanna by Lukather, where the song really changes. But the fade out solo is one of my favorite parts of a rock tune.
"Baby Come Back" has a fade out solo.
Oh yeah, great. Actually, "Hold On Loosely," fade out solo, and then Denny Carmassi, whatever his name is, that guy's a really good player, really good choice. Note selection, this, that, whatever. I mean, he builds a really good solo. But at the end of the day, that's something that was very much of that decade, was the fade out solo. Because by the time the 80s rolled around, that thing, it kind of wasn't part of the song structure anymore.
Right.
It was really a 70s thing, and I'm a big fan of that.
So those are my three good. My three bad are gonna be "No Bone Movies." Well, I love the song, but I hate the guitar tone by Randy Rhoads. Brian May. I'm trying to remember what song I said. What song did I say by Brian May? Oh, "Misfire."
Okay.
"Misfire" by Brian May. The third would be, it's tough to say, but I might think, I do not like George Lynch's tone ever. It's just so much echo and shit, but like the "Paris is Burning" guitar tone, I hate. I hate it with a passion.
He's an interesting player. I'm not, what's that song? Oh shit. What was that? It was one of the earlier Dokken songs.
"Breaking the Chains."
No, something love. It Ain't Love.
Oh, it's not love. I don't know. I'm not a Dokken fan. You know what I did like? I did like the Tooth and Nail album.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked "Alone Again." I liked "Just Got Lucky." In fact, I like any song if it's called "Just Got Lucky." I love the Joe Boxers "Just Got Lucky," that 80s.
Mm-hmm. And then Loverboy had a song, "Get Lucky," right?
No, they had the album "Get Lucky," and the song was "Only the Lucky Ones."
Oh, you're right. Now, tones that I like. I said anything off "Strangers in the Night," Michael Schenker, live album. Vito Bratta, the first
White Lion.
More the first album, but the second album's not bad. But I think he switched at that point. He was using the Steinberger guitars and possibly EMG pickups. His tone changed, but that first album, and I'm led to believe that he was playing through a plexi with a Tube Screamer of all things.
Yeah.
You know? But, man, that tone in the first album is hard to beat, and he's such a good player. And
by the way, I love a Steinberger. I can name 2 songs that use a Steinberger that have a fantastic guitar tone. Summer Nights by Van Halen.
yeah, the Trans Trem, yeah.
Yeah, and there's Trans Trem on Come Undone by Duran Duran. Warren Cucurulo's playing a Trans Trem.
Okay. Well,
And I didn't know that, but I know Warren. Warren had a restaurant down the street from me.
Uh-huh.
Talking one day, and he started playing the song, and I said, why are you playing it in E? I was like, on the record, it's in C. He's like, oh, I play it in E. I trans-trem it down 2 whole steps.
Nice.
I was like, giddy up. I never knew that.
You know, that Trans Trem thing is so cool because, you know, it sounded like, actually, to me, it sounded like the whole chord would drop in pitch in tune. You know what I mean? You know, and you can't do that any other way that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe with a modeling thing, you might be able to do something like that. But Trans Trem, I'm pretty sure Fire in the Hole on the Van Halen 3 with I'm gonna forget his name on
Gary Sharon.
Yeah.
But you know what? You know who knows that album? Nobody. And they shouldn't. And if you have that album at home, throw it out.
Oh, you don't like it? I actually liked a lot of the. I liked a lot of the tunes on that album. I did.
Well, that's funny because I remember reading somewhere that one person might like it.
Here I am. I'm the guy. I bought all the copies that they sold. Well, with Bad Tone, I'm going to get shot for this one. Almost anything that Eric Clapton did, to be honest with you.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I don't like his tone. Or clean or dirty or whatever it is.
Oh, I love his tone on the August album. I mean, I think Forever Man is a great tone.
The only time I liked his tone was there was some kind of a Hendrix tribute album that they did where all these artists were playing Hendrix songs. And he might have done Stone Free, I think. And, man, the tone was really good. And I was like, wow, that's Eric. I wouldn't have guessed that, you know. And that was probably about the only time. But, yeah, I'm not a big fan of his tone at all. And but you know what? Let's not go back to that.
All right. So, folks, we were trying to think of maybe bringing this show to a live format. What do you think about that? Would you want to see this show live and where you could comment live and talk to us both? Let us know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in, and what would be a good time to do it? What would be the best time slot, and or what day would be the best to do it?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So we're gonna call this one. We'll see you all next week, Mike. I'll see you next week.
Yes, looking forward to it. Goodbye. Everybody stay safe and let us know if you want us to go live.
Very good.